You want to take it away?
Sure.
All right.
Welcome back to Honest Voice. I'm Carolsue.
And I'm Todd.
And today we are here to talk to you about the power of words.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that we've been talking about in our previous shows. You know, we don't get manuals on how to talk to each other, how to talk in different scenarios. Mm-hmm. And just quick recap, when Carolsue and I got involved in what's called a crisis intervention program, this is where we learned that certain words can have very specific effects on people. Some are even subconscious. And I think we brought up a few of those, like something as simple as, well, come on, be reasonable. You're basically telling somebody they're unreasonable in that moment, so they can actually get offended by that. Or like tried and true, calm down. Nobody wants to hear that ever. Even in your nicest, kindest way. The closest I've come to using that one is, and hopefully I'm not repeating myself, is asking, hey, can I ask us to bring it down a little bit? Or can I ask you to help me bring it down a little bit so we can communicate more effectively? And that has worked as long as it's phrased in a question. And believe it or not, a lot of times when you want somebody to be compliant or you want somebody to do what it is you ask, phrasing it in a question and requesting it is much different than telling them what to do. Even if you have an authority perspective, if you're a boss or a parent or something like that, asking somebody is much more beneficial than trying to tell them what to do.
Yes, that's a magical ninja skill. We will bring all of these to you a little bit at a time, but something as simple as, can I ask you to, instead of you will, changes the entire dynamic. It makes people feel like it's collaborative, like they have a choice in the matter, which sometimes changes somebody's entire perspective.
Yeah, and I always got sort of, what would you say, ridiculed by my peers when I was in the Navy, because I was considered, even before I got into mental health, I was considered the touchy-feely sheath. Because I would always talk like that to people. I'd be like, hey man, can I get you to do this for me? And even though I had authority over that person, I would always phrase it as a question requesting their assistance. One thing to think about, words are never neutral.
Right.
First of all, they not just build or create trust or distance, they can also cause a lot of damage. I mean, one thing can be said that can ruin a relationship altogether. But the main thing is that they linger far after we expect.
Yeah, I think most of us can think about one specific phrase that had a long time impact on us. And if you think about it, you can remember what you were wearing, who it was that said it to you, how you felt in that moment. And some of those things we carry with us without even realizing it for months, years, decades, and it can impact the way we interact in future conversations.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, something as simple as, I'm proud of you. I mean, that can be a memory that implants in a kid's head all the way into adulthood. Mm-hmm. They remember that day that their parent was really proud of them for an accomplishment, especially if they're going through like hard times at the moment. So those kind of memories are pretty impactful. So rather than saying the negative alternative sometimes is like, what were you thinking? Or
what's wrong with you?
Yeah, exactly. What's wrong with you? That's one that people actually say a lot. And when you think about a lot of phrases that we're going to be touching on, they actually serve absolutely no constructive purpose whatsoever, which is interesting because they're socially acceptable. Like when we hear them out in society, we don't look at them like it's profanity or cursing.
Right.
Which really nowadays that's not even frowned upon. And it's in all the music. It's in numerous church choruses. No, I'm just kidding. It hasn't gone that bad yet, but our threshold for what's obscene or what's inappropriate, inappropriate's a better word, because changing with the times kind of thing, that's changed quite a bit. Profanity is like in all kinds of music now. It's in commercials, it's in regular TV, which, is sort of mind-blowing if you're as old as me, because it's like there's certain words that you can't even imagine ever being said on TV 30 years ago, but now, it's just commonplace, so it's sort of mind-blowing. So let's talk about how words hurt.
Yes. So what we know about words is that, as we've said, they can linger for a very long time. And so sometimes those hurts are loud. It's easy to pinpoint exactly what it was that hurt. So if someone shouts at you, that has an immediate impact. That hurts. That may change the way you choose to interact with that individual going forward. Insulting. Sometimes people think that a jab or a tease that really lands as an insult is a funny but effective way to make you change a behavior. And really all it does is damage your relationship with them and make you want to avoid interacting with them if at all possible.
Yeah, it becomes a strategy for avoidance. So what's really interesting here that we found in our research, and I believe that Brene Brown, she's touched on this quite a bit. I mean, she does a lot of identification of shame, But we want to push it a little further, and we want to literally identify the fact. We actually have a whole show devoted on this right now. But I'm going to tell you right now that shame is one of the most common corrections that people use. People cut down others. They insult others. I'm just going to say it what it is. They make people feel bad in the moment as a motivator.
Right.
So what happens is that when a person's insulted, I mean, even think about it from your own perspective. When a person's insulted, you shut down. So when you shame somebody and they stop the behavior that you shamed them for, you think that that's working. But what has happened now is they've just become compliant. There's no learning involved. Mm-hmm. You know, and I can speak from personal experience without just sitting here and doing show after show after show about my childhood, which would be really sad and not entertaining at all. So we're not going to go there. But you'll hear it creep out every once in a while because it's an experience that actually, you know, during our research with Honest Voice, I was blown away by like the majority of these things that we found out were actually really destructive, it was eye-opening for me. It was almost cathartic because I realized that a lot of my negative perceptions were built in childhood and they stuck with me into adult because there was nothing that changed it. We're sort of trying to be the vehicle for that change. We're trying to take these things that were given to you in childhood, mm-hmm. Like we mentioned in a previous show about how, you know, as a child, you want to connect, you're kind, you're curious, but as society goes on, we get trained or taught to do these things that make us, in some cases, quite dysfunctional.
Yeah.
We develop problematic behaviors based on what we have around us. We're not trying to say that it's everybody else's fault for making us this way, because a lot of it has to do with interpretation. Mm-hmm. And interpretation of what a 5-year-old thinks when they're getting insulted and what a 10-year-old thinks and what a 15-year-old thinks, they're quite different, which we're going to talk about as well.
Yeah.
So these are things to keep in mind. I'm going to tell you this right off the get-go. Shaming and condescension and force, they don't help change minds. Right. They don't help develop an individual into something stronger. And I will tell you also, and I probably mentioned it in a previous show because it's like one of these things that bothers me, and I refuse to say pet peeves because I don't have any. And we'll talk about that one day as well. But one of the things to think about is that the shaming is much easier. And a lot of people, when I've talked to them and I said that actually is degrading to that individual, and the first thing they say is, well, what am I supposed to do then? And I'm going to give you a very irritating response to that, and it's going to be not the bad thing. So we frequently hear actually, because we interact with a lot of people with mental illness, people with low educational attainment throughout their lives. Mm-hmm. A lot of the demographics that we deal with, they don't have a lot of educational backgrounds, and their exposure is very limited too. I mean, some of them grew up in the same house and they haven't gotten out much, so they're not exposed to different cultures, different ways of thinking, different ways of speaking. So it's our job basically to now throw you another tool and say, this is going to work much better than shame. Mm-hmm. And we're going to talk more about that later if I didn't already talk about it too much.
I don't think you did.
So just things like, what were you thinking? Or you always mess this up? Or are you even trying? Those kind of things does not motivate an individual to do better.
Yeah.
And that's where it really gets problematic, because those are usually, I mean, I heard all of those phrases. So mm-hmm. those are exactly what I would think to say to my son. And maybe I even had said those in the past, which, you know, I really regret. But the main thing is there are positive ways to handle almost every situation. And I know that's going to be annoying to a lot of people because we've tested this. We've been testing this for over a decade now. Mm-hmm. And it's really true. There's no reason to yell, and there's no reason to hurt somebody's feelings in that moment. And it's very interesting when you start being aware of yourself when you're doing it. You'd be surprised how common it is, how normal it is, and how frequently it goes on day to day. We watch these cop shows all the time, so it's constant. They're just constantly, what were you thinking? Why didn't you do that? And it's just, or why did you do that? And it's just constant beating each other down instead of saying, hey man, there's probably a better way to do that.
Yeah.
This is what I think next time we should do. Mm-hmm. And that will remedy a problem so much more intensely than just insulting somebody for a mistake that they made. It's amazing to watch in team building exercises and stuff like that we've been through, you know, how encouragement really does help.
Yeah. And what we know about these kinds of words and phrases and behaviors is that they don't stop what we consider bad behavior from happening. So in a parent-child relationship, if you come at your child with a shaming statement, like, I can't believe you did that, chances are your child is going to go on to make some more mistakes, as we all have. But what they're going to learn is not to stop making mistakes, but to stop telling you about them, to stop asking for help to get through them.
Yeah.
So what it does is it damages connection. And in all relationships, what you need is to be able to stay connected through clunky times and bad communication and disagreements and everything else. So you have to choose your words always, but especially when you're emotionally heightened, in order to keep the connection, which is, of course, our priority.
Yeah, and one of the things that I actually read a book when my son was relatively young, probably about 10 or 11. It was one of the things is like when we asked them, what were you thinking? Their response, and I'm sure there's people out there going right now mimicking me, they say, I don't know. Well, the truth is they really don't know. Think about it. Their vocabulary, their experience, all of that stuff is very limited. And sometimes they react because they're mimicking us or they've seen it somewhere else, or that was their limited solution that they came up with for whatever problem they were approaching. So it's really interesting once you finally start dissecting this. And I felt really bad because I know I've said, what were you thinking before that? And I thought, wow, that does not help them say, well, this is what I was thinking and apparently it was wrong, but next time I'm going to do better. I don't think that happens in anyone's household.
Yeah. They never know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was thinking.
Exactly.
Yep.
Okay, so we talked about the loud kind of insulting stuff. What else is there?
So there are quiet ways to hurt each other as well. So sarcasm, described as humor. We have absolutely mentioned sarcasm before. This won't be the last time we talk about it, but it can be incredibly damaging. And unfortunately, it's an attractive option for people to use because they feel like they have the out of saying, oh, I was just kidding.
Yeah.
But the problem is that the wound has already happened. The hurt is already there from what someone feels as criticism. And so what you say after that about not kidding doesn't land anymore. The feeling's already there. The impact is already there. Whatever your intent was, the impact was negative.
Yeah, so tell us more about intent and impact, because that's something that comes up a lot in our studies.
Yeah, so intent is mine as the speaker. I have an intention when I'm going to say something to my husband, and I intend to get him to stop loading the dishwasher incorrectly. The impact, this is not a thing that actually happens, it's just our
It's our joke. We don't care about, we both do it the way we like it, so neither of us have a problem, but this is a frequent problem our friends bring to us all the time. It's like the other person just does it differently from them and it annoys them, but it's not always wrong. And that's something that we're throwing a little bit of a plug in.
That's
there.
right. That's right. So my intention, so if I say to him, do you just not want the dishes to get clean because you keep blocking the water? And if my intention is I want him to stop placing the dishes in such a way that the water doesn't flow, but what's the impact on you?
Yeah, I'm just insulted by it.
And embarrassed.
And I don't see anything wrong with putting the bowls upright in the top shelf, where you pull that out and you get that first wave of water all over you. That's like my favorite thing.
It's not what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. But so that was just an insult when very easily she could kindly come to me and say, hey, babe, is it okay if you do the bowls in a certain way so it doesn't fill up with water? Or you don't cover the entire bottom area with flat plates so the water gets up to the top? There are ways that are wrong when it comes to...
There are less efficient ways, absolutely.
Yeah, let's say there's dysfunctional ways of loading it where it will not do the job that it's supposed to do. Yeah, and that's really the only thing that contributes to a wrong way in this scenario. And I do sound like I'm defending myself, don't I? Because I'm talking a lot about dishwashers right now, and it's literally, I'm not trying to convince you otherwise, it's literally not a problem in our household, right? Yeah. Okay, so anyway.
It's just a little funny watching you sweat a little bit.
Yeah, I sweat a little bit.
So there's intent versus impact. If I'm trying to get him to be more efficient in the way he loads the dishwasher, but I embarrass him, he's probably just going to be motivated not to help with the dishwasher anymore because he's not trying to hear little jabs about how I don't like it. So I haven't done anything to keep the connection when I could have said, hey, babe, thank you so much for doing the dishes before I got home yesterday. That was awesome. I did notice that some of the bowls didn't get as clean, and I wonder if it's because of the way you loaded the bottom. Could we fix that?
Exactly. Informative. So this is where we're going to introduce one of our concepts, and we may have introduced it before. We've had a couple weeks between.
We talk a lot, so we're not quite sure what we've said and what we haven't.
Yeah. So one of the concepts that we talk about a lot, and you might have already heard it, is is we focus very heavily on attacking the problem, not attacking each other. This is the thing, that it's a simple, there's two very simple tools that we're going to be telling you. One of them I think we've already brought out is the pause. You know, before you react, before you say anything, when you start feeling stressed out, pause for a moment. Think about this feeling. Think about what's going to come out of your mouth next before you actually deliver it, because very few people do that. We just blurt. You know, we react. In fact, some of us, when we're listening, we're waiting to react. We're not even really listening.
That's true.
So it's very important to understand that there are certain tools out there that can help you focus your communication. Because, you know, I've always said this, I learned this in the Navy, there's a massive difference in the quality of output of any project when you, instead of approaching it with, how long is this going to take? Right. What is it? What do we have to do now? Or why do we have to do this? And just saying, all right, let's go ahead and get this done, and we'll figure out while we're doing it. So sometimes that we're definitely not toxic positivity people. Like if your house was falling down, we wouldn't be the people to say, oh, well, at least you have your lives. You know, that's no, my house is falling down. Yeah, we get that. So we're both crisis intervention specialists. So, you know, we know not to say those kind of things that are just dismissing the fact that you're dealing with a problem right now. But one of those things is focusing on the problem itself. What can we do together, since we are in a relationship, that will help solve this problem that's bothering both of us? And attacking never helps. And one of the things I always say in crisis intervention, just as a measuring point for you, I always say that if two people are yelling, nothing is getting accomplished. You are not doing anything productive. You're not helping each other. Usually there gets to a point where when you think about it, and when I first introduced this to my wife, she said that might sound a little harsh. But really, in those moments, all you're trying to do is make a person feel bad after a situation. And that's what communication can do. Think about, what are my words going to actually do to help this situation from happening again? And a lot of times, there isn't anything. It was an accident. It was a fluke. But we have this tendency, myself included in the past, of just like, man, how could you just let this get to this point? I mean, there's got to be some time when you thought that you could have stopped it. None of that stuff helps. It's the weirdest thing, but it's so common. So you were talking about the quiet ways. One of the quiet ways that I always think of is like the follow-on afterwards. You think it might be funny, but now that Carolsue has told me about my dishwashing thing, and now I do it right, the next time she comes in, if she says something like, wow, it's about time, that's not going to motivate me to continue to make her proud of me, you know, listening and getting things done in there. Those kind of backhanded, soft comments, they're not funny. I mean, it's really insulting somebody in the moment that they're actually trying to prove themselves. Actually, if you look at it from a crisis intervention specialist point of view, it's sort of cruel. You know, somebody comes up to you, like a kid comes up to you and they're proud and they're showing you something and they want you to engage in that pride. They're not showing off. And if you compliment them, it's not going to go to a kid's head, which I've heard parents say, like, I don't want to compliment them too much. It might go to their head. You can control for that as well as they grow when you start seeing signs of it. But you're not going to prevent it by not complimenting them.
And the answer to that is not to passive-aggressively insult them to keep them grounded.
Exactly.
Not helpful either.
It doesn't build character.
Let me cut him down a little bit so he doesn't get a big head.
Exactly. So in those prideful moments, the only thing to do is to say something positive. Say that, I am so proud of you. I knew you could do it. And you can even relate. If you want to build some resiliency in there, you can say, I know we stumbled over this a little bit and we struggled a bit, but you got it now. This is good. If you can do this, we can keep moving now. So those kind of encouraging statements, they're only positive. They can only help the child or anybody actually do better. I mean, even me as an adult, I say, hey, I finally got it right. In fact, it sounds better me saying it than Carolsue saying, wow, you finally got it right. Exactly. So this is where, like you were saying, the intent and the impact. Your intent in that moment is to do sort of a sideways compliment that you agree that I did it right. But at the same time, you're adding a piece of insult in there that degrades it. It sort of cancels it.
It really does. It really does.
So we read this thing a while ago about, there was an analogy about sewage, so I'm going to introduce it here real quick. There are certain things. So the analogy is that if you take sewage and drop a drop of wine in it, you still have sewage. if you have a thing of wine and you drop some sewage in it, you also have sewage. The analogy is that in spite of all of our accomplishments, there are deal breakers. There are those moments. They say that it takes a lifetime to build trust and it only takes one event to bring it down. Those kind of things you need to keep in mind when you're communicating, because you can say the wrong thing and it can taint your relationship for years. That hurt, that person feeling disrespected in that moment, like how could you say something like that and think that it's okay? Those kind of things can linger for a long time, no matter how good our coping skills are. So think about it. And that's what the whole thing is about, is the power of words. We underestimate it because we're using words all the time. So we think, oh, I've been doing this my whole life. I'm great at it. But man, when we got into crisis intervention, it was really mind-blowing, the nuances involved. All right, so we're talking about intent. We talked about impact. They're not always the same. What your intention is and how it's impacted. For me, and we've written this in the book actually, is that the mark of a good communicator is someone who takes responsibility for their intent as well as their impact. So if you said to me, well, it's about time you finally got it right. And I'm like, well, you know, that wasn't very nice. And so you could easily respond with, whoa, I was just kidding. You know, when you probably weren't kidding, even though you said that. So we're big on being dishonest about even that. Our whole theme in Honest Voice is that we do these white lies to get out of certain things, but when you start peeling them apart, why are we getting out of it? You know, why are we having to use
Why is that our goal?
Why can't we just talk openly? No, I'm not interested tonight. What's her name? Quinta
Brunson. Yes.
If you get on YouTube, she's got an awesome video about the truth, and she's eating dinner with a bunch of friends, and they're talking about, I think, going out, and she's like, nah, I don't want to.
Yeah, this was back during her BuzzFeed days, so check through BuzzFeed. We'll put the link in the
we'll have the link too. But it's very funny. That's sort of our style. We want to be honest, and I've even said to people, I don't know if you've had to get to this point yet, but I've had to say, hey, no, I'm not feeling that this weekend. I just want to take it easy. And they're like, come on, go out with the friends. I'm like, please don't try to coerce me to do something I don't want to do. That's just how I talk. I try to be very kind about it. I'm being honest at the same time. I love you to death, but please don't try to force me to do something I don't want to do right now, because my focus is really on going home and relaxing.
Right.
And I do want to go out with you next time. And I might want to go out with you next time, but shaming isn't the way to motivate me to want to go out with you. So that's just something to think about. So we had some good examples. Also, some things that can be potentially harmful if you have more than one kid. Comparisons are really bad. I personally grew up with a lot of that, and it doesn't motivate you. When someone says, why can't you be like your sister? Or why can't you be like your brother? That doesn't make you aspire to want to be more like them.
No.
It makes you jealous,
resentful.
Resentful. And then, especially from a parent's perspective, if you've got conflict between the kids, you're adding to that conflict because you're making one of them more resentful. And this is something you have to realize, is that people who have one kid, have 2 kids, 3 kids, 4 kids, 5 kids, they're all different. And the reason they're different in the same house with the same rules, with the same parents, is because each one of them is introduced into a different environment.
That's right.
So the first kid had their environment. The second kid now has the environment plus a kid. And now the older person now has a new environment as well that they're trying to adapt to. So perspective, impact, all that stuff, it lands differently on each one of them. So you have to monitor that. You have to take that time. If it's something that's technical and could be potentially harsh, you have to take that time to ask that kid, so what did you hear, buddy? Tell me what you think dad's saying or what you think mommy's saying right now. How do we do that together? Because that's another thing that we've learned, is that you can have a 5-year-old with a vocabulary that's better than mine. They're very articulate and they're talking, they're very intelligent, but they don't have the experience and the understanding of those words that we do. So it throws us off. We're like, well, they should understand me when I say watch out. But what does watch out mean? Watch out for what?
Where?
And then a lot of parents will actually say something like, get out of the way. And then when the kid doesn't know what to do, they'll get angrier.
That's right.
So like, I told you to get out of the way. And it's like, the kid I have no idea what those words mean in this context.
No context.
Yeah, so it's just something to think about. That's one of them. And what's another one?
Something that's meant to be encouraging, but it comes out as, you'll never get anywhere if you don't try. A lot of negatives in a statement just aren't the best starting point for trying to be encouraging. And it leaves that negative impact. The intention may have been to motivate them to try, but the message may come across as, I'm already pretty sure you're not going to amount to anything, but if you don't try, then we'll be sure that's true.
Yeah.
And we use childhood as a lot of these examples because this is where it all starts. I mean, this is where we learn how to interact with other people, who we can trust, who we can't. But the power of words goes on through our entire lifespan. So people that we work with, who you date, who you marry, your relationships with your parents and siblings and family as an adult, the impact is all still there, but it does tend to start in childhood, which is when we get all of our lessons taught to us, either in a positive way or maybe not so positive, and the impact lasts.
Yeah. And another one is, I'm saying this for your own good. If you have to preface it with that, it means you sort of have an idea that they're not going to understand the meaning. Like,
That's right.
I'm going to say a bunch of cruel words to you to show that I'm disappointed in this moment. You may not understand. And of course, you're not going to retain it in any such way that it's actually going to contribute to us fixing this problem. But I feel the need to go ahead and be harsh with you in this moment so you'll understand the impact. So think about those things. Rehearse them. If you're in a family where you have other adults, a married couple or step parents or whatever you're doing, bounce it off of them and say, how would you feel in this moment if I told you that? Because it's really important to understand. The impact is just something that we don't always know because we're all different. And that's one thing I stress all the time. As adults, we make so many assumptions about how other people will perceive things because we want to believe that there's some kind of universal connection that if I'm an adult saying adult words, then the other adults will understand these words exactly as the adult said them.
That's right.
And it can be further from the truth. And like I said, this is all based on research. This kind of stuff is amazing. We are more different when it comes to communication than we are similar, I would like to say.
I agree with that.
Just when it comes to communication. So let's talk about some healing words as we wrap this up.
Yes. So here's the great news. We're not asking for a ton of effort or a lot of hard work. The very, very small affirmations make a huge difference. Little ways that you can impact people around you to lift them up. Those things can last for a really long time. And what we also find is that consistency is much more important than intensity. So rather than give some big grand speech once a year about how great your employees are, consistently go to them and say, hey, I saw how you were interacting with that client yesterday. You were so empathic. That was awesome. I just wanted to let you know that I noticed that.
Yeah, you just brought something really smart too, is that when you detail it to their actions instead of those generalities, generalities, if you work in even a remotely toxic environment, generalities have no impact on the group whatsoever. Yeah.
You're a great team player.
Yeah,
That didn't make you feel better?
Yeah. Yeah.
No?
Well, everything makes me feel better. I'm just kidding. But yeah, those kind of generalities, we know they don't work. So that was good. But you can continue.
Yes. And curiosity builds safety. So when we don't come into the conversation assuming we know what the other person's going to do, why they did what they did, all the things. When we come in with interest and curiosity, then by default, it's collaborative.
Yeah, and you know what? It's also pretty protective of yourself.
What we find is that curiosity builds safety. So even if you're coming into a conversation with some prior knowledge that somebody has given you, let's say in a work setting, an employee has reported to you that another employee did something bad. If you go in to that conversation assuming that what the previous employee told you is 100% true, then you might go into this conversation and find out that it wasn't at all. So if you go in curiously and say, hey, can you tell me a little bit about what was going on this afternoon when you were interacting with that client? How did that go? Be curious, let them give you feedback instead of going in with this presumption that you know what happened if you weren't there.
So as a leader, I just upset one of my staff members by accusing them of something that they didn't even do without hearing them out or even thinking back to, that doesn't sound like my staff member. You know what I mean? But it happens because in the moment, those kind of things as a parent, as a leader, we're mildly embarrassed because our staff members are representative of us. So we come in hot, as they say, and start attacking them before we get to the bottom of what's going on. So once again, we're going to keep ticking these off. We're going to keep saying how approaching with anger, approaching with animosity, approaching with condescension, these negative attributes, they do not help in any capacity whatsoever. They're just so normal that we just think that's the only way to do it.
So we encourage validating statements whenever possible. If someone is sharing something with you that's personal, whether you agree with it or disagree with it, it's very comforting to say something like, I hear you.
Yeah.
Or that must have been really tough. You're not giving a value judgment one way or the other, but what you are doing is keeping that connection open.
Right.
And inviting more conversation and letting this person know that they are safe to talk about this maybe very difficult topic with you.
Yeah. And I want to be very clear about, this is not a touchy-feely kind of show, really. It's not be nicer. Somebody screaming at you. And to a certain degree it is, and we'll get more into that later.
Yeah.
But we're not, these are very realistic approaches. I mean, we have been in situations where people are screaming in our face, literally spitting, and they're calling us every name in the book. I don't know how many times I've heard four-eyed baldy, whatever you want to add on to that when I'm trying to de-escalate somebody that, is having a crisis. But we're talking about communication styles within your life that will help you feel more stable. We want to give you tools because nobody has these tools.
No,
And we got in and started finding these tools and went further than what the curriculum was identifying in crisis intervention. We found out that basically it just came to, we're just not talking the right way.
Yeah.
Overall, a better way is to handle negative situations all the time. There's not just one way,
No.
but we think they are because that's the way we were taught, or that's the way we were seen, or that's the way my dad handled it, that's the way my mom handled it, so therefore this is how I handled it. But also not to blame the parents. It's like, this is the show of disclaimers.
That's right. We'll have them all going in a running tickler.
Exactly. They demonstrated what they learned from probably even a less educated environment. I mean, when you look at the generational differences, basically communication was even lesser, like back during World War II.
Right.
They didn't talk about feelings at all in any capacity, especially men. So this is sort of nuanced that we're trying to demonstrate. But the main thing is that there is a more constructive rather than positive way of saying
Nice.
it.
I like that.
There's a more constructive way of doing things. And when you say constructive, it's literal. The other ways that Carolsue brought up, the condescension, the
Sarcasm.
negativity, those are destructive. They tear a person down. But like I said, it mimics compliance. But really, they're just shutting it down.
Yeah.
I mean, these are the scenarios that parents fear the most, is that if you're in a toxic household, and I can't speak from experience, if you're in a toxic household, yelling and the condescension, the insults, the punishment, all that kind of stuff, it trains a person to hide things. It trains a person to lie, because the mindset, I can remember this because with traumatic backgrounds, the memories are very clear, but all I learned was I better hide this better.
Yep.
Or if there's a 50-50 chance that I can lie and not get caught, I'm going to go that route because it's better than 100% of getting punished.
Yeah.
So these are things to think about, and we facilitate that. And I don't know how many in mental health, I don't know how many parents we've come up to and had to tell them something that their kid did, and they're like, not my child.
That's
and they
right.
don't realize that they really don't know their kid at all, because they shut that communication down when they were 5, 6, or 7 by reacting to everything that they say with anger, which basically provokes fear in the child. And that, I mean, when you're in a group with kids, when you think about this, just the peer pressure and all that kind of stuff, we do a lot of stupid stuff just because influence of the moment. You know what I mean? So that kind of berating or punishment's not going to help. Teaching your child how to stand up during those peer, come on, man, you're dumb if you don't do it. I don't know the terminology. That kind of stuff, it affects everybody differently. So what I would reflect back on it being a parent would probably be the biggest change, is making sure that communication was always open, non-reactive. And that comes with, even expressions like, oh, how could you do that? Like, oh my gosh. Saying something like, you really disappointed me now. That doesn't encourage people to change that behavior. What they will do now is actually just find ways to avoid
They will hide. They will hide behavior.
So you won't be disappointed. So think about these things. And what's an easy way to flip that I'm disappointed? This is how we can do this better. What do you think? Collaborate. So there is a constructive approach to all these negativities. I know some of you are saying, there's something out there, but hey, if there is, respond to us.
Yes,
Email us. You can even get on our webpage, and the last page is contact us. You can do it anonymous. Just put any information you want in there that doesn't have to be you, and send us a message. But let us know. We always want you to tell us, is this private, or can we say your name? Do you want to hear your name? Private, we'll just say we got a message from this person, because a lot of people talk to us about their relationships. So we usually tell our friends to DM us. Don't put it on Facebook, but if you have something, just send a direct message or send an email. So we'll definitely have the email links up here after this. All right, so encouraging words. I notice how much effort you put into that. I appreciate you sticking with it, and that really mattered to me. Those are the things you were talking about, those things that build that feeling of accomplishment.
And again, little things. It doesn't have to be these big, profound statements. Just letting somebody know that you see them and you appreciate what they're doing or you're proud of them, you think it's a little thing, but to the person that you're saying it to, that may be the only nice thing they hear today or this week. You just don't know. So if you see someone behaving in a way that makes you proud or impressed, or even just makes you want to know more about them, don't hesitate to take that moment to connect, because that's really the entire focus that we have here, is keeping you connected to your loved ones and keeping them connected to you so that we can keep growing together moving forward.
Yeah. And if you get into a conflict, don't assume that your 20-year-old reminiscence of when you were a child, or 30 years or 40 years, is the same as what they're going through in that moment. I mean, bullying is not the same in the last 20 years.
So true.
Everything has changed. Communication has changed. And unfortunately, the statistics indicate that communication overall has degraded massively, especially with the pandemic, the social interaction. Consider what your social experience is. How many different people have you come in contact with? How many different people do you learn from? For a lot of us, it's not many.
Yeah.
It's just a handful. So something to think about. So one of the things that's always very helpful in a relationship, is the last big positive, is expound on it from the curiosity standpoint that you brought up. It's like, help me understand that. I've never been in that kind of situation before. So give me more background. Just show that interest and communicate with your loved ones, or just even a friend, that you're interacting with. But learn about them. Most of us want to hear what they have to say or nod and go, yeah, but you know what happened to me today? So, ask those kind of questions. And if you make a mistake, this is the weirdest thing. When you start learning about this communication, I'm sorry, those are just two words, like blue car. They're just words. And why people put so much emotional protection or shielding from those words, I never understand it. And I know there's comedy shows where, like, the very machismo kind of guy, he knows he made a mistake and he's like, I'm so, and they make jokes about that. And I can't stand those, because it just reinforces that kind of thing where people think that I'm sorry is such a bad thing. But if you're in a situation where you said something like a backhanded comment and they're like, hey, I didn't appreciate that. That wasn't very complimentary. Say, I'm so sorry. I did not realize it landed that way, if you're sincere. But if you were making a backhanded comment, then just say, I'm sorry, you're right. This is new now. I got to get out of this habit of thinking that's going to make things better, because you are learning new communication.
Yeah.
And some people will be good with that and some people won't be good with that. So something to keep in mind. But I'm sure you can see the merit of speaking in a more constructive way than in a destructive way.
So what we'll ask you to do this week is think back over your interactions with folks in the past 7 days. Was there a word or phrase that may have landed harder than you realized? Whether it was a word or phrase you said, or a word or phrase that was said to you, where you may be surprised by, a normally kind person in your life says something and it landed kind of harshly. Just reflect on that and what was different, and is there a way to approach that conversation?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Also think about things that you can do to encourage people this week, and just pick one, because it's easy to focus. You don't want to be going around public and be like, you're great. I like your hat. That's very nice. Those are cool glasses. That's exhausting.
Yeah. And a little weird.
Yeah. And really, the best compliments are from things that are actually, say, accomplishments rather than appearance. Like, it's never good to compliment people on appearance unless it's very appearance specific interaction, like, what do you think of this new coat, or what do you think of this hat?
Yes.
But as a general complimentary kind of thing, it's best to be specific and unique to that person. Like, hey, I really like the way you wrote that, or I like the way you said that. That really hit me hard. And what's really mind-blowing, if you are in these situations where there's a lot of negative, destructive type of interaction, it's never too late to change the environment,
Absolutely.
So think about somebody that you might have said something to that maybe could have probably handled a little better, and just face to face or send them a text and say, hey, I might not say it all the time, but I really do appreciate our friendship. And I'm very thankful for you. And if you're in a relationship, do something different. Say, hey, I don't want to fight like this anymore.
Yes.
We're going to take time and we're going to figure out ways to be closer, because we're going to attack
the problem, not each other.
So think about that. That's the weirdest thing. And I'll tell you, it really hit me one time when I had this supervisor, and I had sent this link to somebody that actually caused a pay thing. Like, it was a survey that you could do, but it actually charged back to the business. And I forgot to read the email because I had talked to the supervisor about it. And I just sent it to a friend. I'm like, hey, check this out. This is really cool. And then a couple days later, the supervisor came and said, who did you give that link out to? And started yelling at me. And I was just like, I'm really sorry. I didn't read the email because we had talked so much about it. I didn't realize it was a pay thing. I should have read the email anyway. But it's one of those things where it's like, hey, I got an article about this kind of thing, and it's about this, this, and this, and I'll send you the link. And 9 out of 10 times, I don't read the email they sent. I just go to the link because they said they were sending it to me. But there was some background, and then I said, I'm sorry, can I pay for it? And they're like, no, but what were you thinking? I'm like, I apologize. I did not read the email.
Right.
And they're like, wow, it'd be nice if I could just send it to my friends too. And they just kept going on and on. And I have learned from this.
I recognize that I made an error, and I have attempted to verbalize this and to apologize.
Exactly. But this supervisor just wanted me to feel bad for it. It was really odd. And I thought it was just very bizarre. Of course, I didn't stay there long, but anyway.
Right. And again, words have impact. How long ago was that? And you can still remember.
Yeah, that was several years ago.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, that person just really wanted me to feel bad, but it was already remedied.
Right.
So think about those things when you're talking to people. When you stuck up for me, that really meant something to me. And I was thinking about that the other day. So words are much more powerful, and that's all we're going to be talking about in these kind of things is ways that you can change your words so they have more of a positive impact in enriching people's lives rather than tearing them down.
Exactly. Yeah. So find your opportunities this week. We hope you have a great week, and we will see you next time.
Bye now.